another episode of Beyond the Device, where we explore the life-defining moments that shape careers within the medical device industry. We are particularly interested in understanding how personal experiences, challenges, or pivotal events influence professional journeys. As we progress through the conversation, we will land on the question, what is the one defining moment or experience in your life that changed everything and set you on the path you're on today? Today's guest has spent more than 25 years in the world of medical devices and diagnostics. We'll explore his journey from consultancy into industry, working for multinationals and startups before stepping into one of the most influential roles in UK regulation at the MHRA. In this episode, we're going to go beyond policy and frameworks to explore the human story, the moments that shaped him, the turning points that redirected his path, the setbacks, mentors, lessons and decisions that ultimately led him to where he is today. For Nathan and I, he has also been a client and a candidate, and he continues to be an active supporter of CAPU and our community. I'm delighted to welcome Joseph Burt to Beyond the Device. Welcome, Joseph.
Duncan, Nathan,
Welcome.
It's delightful to be here with you both. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you.
Right. Well, let's start from the obvious kind of place at the start. What kind of shaped you growing up? If you wouldn't mind telling us a bit about your earlier years, what was life like for you as a youngster?
For me as a youngster, I grew up in a scientific household. Mom being a scientific geek herself, she had a very strong science background, graduated with medical technology way back in the 60s before medtech became a really big thing. Her brothers and sisters, who were my uncles and aunties, also had a science background. They were engineers and scientists. Many of them still are working till today. They're in their 70s. So that's really inspired me when I was younger. That science, that engineering background has helped grow me as a person. So me as a person really grew up with that scientific engineering history, and it's a legacy for me from my mum and her family. And my mum was the first person to go to university, and that was a real inspiration as well for me because university isn't somewhere people often go to back in the olden days. It's somewhere it was fairly prestigious, pretty elite. But she was quite academic herself, so she went to university and graduated and obviously then worked in the science field. So for me, science and engineering was all around, and I loved it. And even still today, I still enjoy that background, the history. We talk about it quite a bit in our family, and it's great to be in that history. As a child, I really enjoyed being practical. I'm a practical kind of guy. You see me sometimes pottering about in the weekends, in the garden or building something or doing something really with my hands. And that comes from an early age, actually, where I really enjoy practical things in life. And so growing up, it was all about helping out around the house, doing all the chores. We all hate doing those chores, right? No one enjoys that. But the things that are really enjoyable are not chores. They're seen more as something I like to do, and that's what I did. When I was younger, mom and dad would often help me become a little bit more practical. And over the years, I've come to realize that I am a practical kind of person. I love doing DIY on the weekend. Who doesn't?
To what standard?
Oh, very high standard.
Okay.
It's very high. So I will absolutely perfect it. So siliconing is my absolute hate on the weekend. But with siliconing, if anyone's done any siliconing in their life or caulking, it's patience. It's real patience. That gun that you're holding, delivering the cork or the silicone can be really quite difficult. But it's about patience. For me, I love doing that. It gives me time to just reflect as well. And that comes from an early age. It really did. And, I love doing small things, big things. I love to put off things as well because I'm quite a procrastinator sometimes. But you know what? As soon as I get to it, I feel that accomplishment. And again, that comes back to when I was younger. Again, I guess later in life, and this is later on in probably in my teenage years, coming out of my teenage years, I got to love other things around science, and I got to be more specialist in a lot of the things I did. And I later discovered that I really enjoy maths. I hated maths at school. It sounds probably weird to hear that I hated maths because I loved chemistry, physics, biology, technology, and woodworking and art. I loved all of that, but I hated maths.
Do you
Absolutely.
think, did you think the teacher had anything to do with that?
Yes,
Because
it did.
specific teachers can, like, I remember GCSEs were okay, got to A levels, the first term teacher, just no one could get on board with it. Someone else come in and it all made sense.
I would agree. Teachers are such big influencers. They were the influencers of our generation, certainly in my generation. There was no TikTok or Instagram in those days. So it was the friends or the phone calls that you made or the people you interacted with. And at school, you interacted with teachers for
Mm.
8 hours a day, right? And I think it was my teachers that really didn't help me with maths. It was very much the sciences, the other sciences, chemistry, biology, physics, that really were inspirational for me. But later in life, I just started to enjoy maths. Coming out of university, I love maths, and so I did a degree in it. Who does that? Who does a degree out of just because they love something? Well, I did. I did a Bachelor of Science in Applied Mathematics, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I got to learn all the wonderful new concepts, and it started to explain the world to me, and that's what I really enjoy about maths. Um, but I know that maths didn't pay a job, and it probably does these days, but back then it didn't. So I did do a continuation of my biomedical engineering degree and an engineering degree specifically, and I did an honors in that at a university. And those two complement each other. It complements that passion of mathematics and explaining things through numbers with my practicality. I love practical things, and so building and doing DIY help inspire the engineering side of me. And so I think those two things help. And just to the wall to the left of me are both of those degrees. I look at that occasion and go, useless degree, practical degree. And you decide which one's which.
A friend of mine
And
studied maths, and when he was at university, we all just assumed, well, you just become a maths teacher, right? That's the only career path you have, and he has. He's head of maths at a private school.
Ah,
Did you ever consider teaching?
no, because I'm terrible at teaching. But that was the route, Duncan, for many, many mathematics graduates was to do a postgraduate in postgraduate diploma in education, and that's what they did. They became maths teachers.
Mm.
But I'm a terrible teacher, and I knew that early on. And I hope I've amended my ways a little bit with that, and hopefully I am a much better educator these days. But I did not have any inspiration to go into teaching. Because I really was more a practical person,
Mm.
pragmatics.
I'm going to make a bit of an assumption here that you did not imagine you'd be doing the role that you are now back then with the influence that you have on regulations at MHRA. So how have you gone towards that path based on your love of maths and science?
It's been useful, I've got to say, Nathan,
Hmm.
incredibly useful in this role. Being a regulator and being part of the development of regulations has really been impactful and most impactful with the background that I've had. The scientific and engineering background, knowing how things are built, knowing how things go through a design, development, validation, verification process, through to the use of the medical device or IVD lent itself naturally to having a scientific and engineering background. Um, I would never have thought back then that I would be part of a regulatory world. Never, ever. It's been an absolute honor, and I say this in all sincerity, that this is just a role of a lifetime for me, and and it's been such a privilege to be able to do it. So yeah, it's completely nothing I would have planned for back in the university years and coming into my 20s, but to be here now is just such an honor.
And you've obviously spoken about the influence of your family, the scientific backgrounds, the kind of the practical weekends that's kind of led you on that path. But when it comes to our industry and understanding what is medtech, what is diagnostics, and getting that first step in, are there any key role models, influences, anyone that stands out?
Oh, there's two, but I'm going to start off with one who helped me start my journey in regulatory affairs and quality. And I hope he listens to the podcast. If he hasn't yet, I'll certainly tell
Or
him.
if not, we'll send it on. Yeah.
Yes, that would be great. It's a gentleman called Simon Richards. So Simon and I are still amazing colleagues and friends. Even till today, we catch up occasionally for lunch, and I see him, and he speaks with me, and I speak with him, etc. But he was the guy that really inspired me to do what I'm doing today. We met when we were working together at Alere. Alere was the company that he and I worked on, and it obviously got taken over by Abbott, became Abbott Rapid Diagnostics Division. But Simon continued to be my mentor, my manager, my inspiration for doing what I'm doing today. No one goes into regulatory affairs. I've come to learn this. I think you guys have come to learn this as well from your other guests.
Yeah.
You don't naturally say, "Oh, I'm going to wake up and going to go in regulation."
To be fair, it's the same with recruitment. No one wants to do it. No one chooses to do it. It just takes you there.
Ours is probably more niche. I'm going to grow up and I'm going to recruit regulatory people.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be inspirational if we could just say that? Couldn't we just say to people coming out of university, you're going to be a recruiter in regulatory affairs, in medical devices and IVDs? Can you imagine? But yeah, Simon is an amazing guy. He's so knowledgeable. He's obviously retired now, but he's been one of those people that has just shown me how to do regulatory affairs, how to do technical files, how to do submissions, how to do regulatory intelligence, how to do lots of different things that are just natural these days to what I do and what regulatory affairs professionals do. And of course, coming with that is a lot of your quality assurance elements. You know, QA is very much the other side of the coin to regulatory affairs. But Simon taught me a lot of that, and that's, you know, I owe it all to him for a lot of the things I'm doing today. All the inspirational talks that we've had, all the guidances we've gone through, and all the opportunities he's given me over the years, and even till today, still inspirational. So that's Simon. I'm gushing a little bit, and I'm hoping I'm hoping that that it's not too kind of elaborative, but I do enjoy working with Simon. I have always done so. And
To be fair, if I
great.
remember rightly, Duncan, you can confirm, when we first got into recruitment, wasn't Simon like chair of BIVDA? And we would have seen him.
For a long
Yeah.
time, and then it was Richard Saunders. But I'm guessing that those two names within the IVD industry, I'm sure so many people would consider them mentors and friends, and have had such a heavy influence on their careers. I guess even from our perspective, going to the early BIVDAs, we probably learnt so much from them early on.
And there's
I
so
ju- I
much
just,
to learn as well. And
Yeah,
this industry is constantly evolving.
yeah.
So, you know, if you think technical files is the only thing you're going to do, think again, because there's so much other stuff that you can do beyond technical files. There's submissions, there's reg intelligence, there's, you know, looking at becoming a UKRP or a notified body or approved body. There's just so much going on.
Mm.
Got a funny story with Richards. I think at a BIVDA meeting, he had told me that he may need a contractor. This would have been like 2013, 2014. I think I chased that lead for 5 years. It didn't go anywhere. And eventually thought, I don't think he's going to hire a regulatory contractor.
Well, ironically, after that, we hired hundreds.
Yeah, patience.
Yeah.
So you said there was Simon. Was there a second?
There is, and I hope she won't mind me saying this, but it's I would never have thought I'd go into this role, right? Who would say I'm going to go and become a head of diagnostics and medical devices? No one does that. So I got into this, and I thought I'm just going to maybe do this for a couple of years and then hopefully go and springboard to something else. But there was one person that's really inspired me to do what I'm doing today, and her name's Laura Squire. So she's no longer with the civil service. She has been in the civil service for many, many decades. Very much a stalwart of becoming how to be a good civil servant, a senior civil servant. And Laura, for me, has been that person that's guided me over the years. She's very kind-hearted, motivational, incredibly knowledgeable, and is just a great friend. She's been in that civil service role for over 30 years, and over that time you get to learn how to become a civil servant. You know how to operate, you know how to speak, you know how to kind of interact with ministers and interact with the public and interact with big organizations. So she taught me that. She taught me that. I had no background in that at all before joining the senior civil service. I was Joseph Burt, working at a startup company in St. Ives. Before that, working at Abbott as a regulator affairs person. Before that, at Lear, etc. And I would never have thought how to become a civil servant. But you know what? Over the years I've been here, you get to learn that there's the slow way and then there's the fast way. And the fast way is what Laura taught me, is how to become a really good civil servant, how to interact, how to do submissions, how to do things with what you have. There's not infinite amounts of money, as you would probably see in industry. Managing uncertainty constantly is just there. And she was able to inspire me to say, Joseph, control what you can. There's this big machine called government. You're not going to control government. You're not the prime minister, although I wish I could be, but I'm not. I have to be an elected person to do that. But there are so many things that you can't control. And one of the things that Laura said to me before she retired early this year, is just be yourself, be natural, be that great leader that you were and are, but use the operations that I've taught you over the years of becoming a senior civil servant to do even better. And one thing you have to do, Joseph, is leave a legacy. And that's been really important for what I'm doing now. That's very important with what Laura shared with me. And even to today, I do interact with Laura. We still WhatsApp each other and all that wonderful things. I still got to try and catch up with her, but it keeps ringing in my head. She has been one of those people that has showed me the ropes of how to become a good civil servant, to give service to our country.
Two very, very good role models. And
Yes.
I'm sure there will be more to come. And I think we'll reflect on the legacy part of what motivates you later in the conversation. But as with all of the podcasts, we want to reflect on that one defining moment or experience that has shaped you and when that may have been in your career. So can you think of that one point?
Oh, Duncan, that's a very hard question, but a very good one. So for me, university was a great set of years, 6 years going to university, doing lots of degrees. And you had structure at university. You went to lectures, you went to tutorials, you got to learn, you got to do lots of wonderful things to explore your inner self and in your mind and creativity. But you know, when your degree finishes and you graduate from university, there's that emptiness that happens. And for me, that emptiness was called unemployment.
Hmm.
I was unemployed for a long period of time. And for me, that was personally very challenging, mentally draining, and mentally very difficult. From a place where you're going 100 miles an hour to a wall that stops, and you're hitting that wall saying, "What do I do now?" And for me, that was my defining moment in all of this, in that I didn't have that sense of purpose anymore. You had I had 6 years of university life to then come to zero. And zero was really hard for me because I didn't know what I was going to do. I was uncertain about where I wanted to go. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what I was going to do with these degrees that I just earned. And that was hard for me. And that was my defining moment, Duncan.
I think so many people will relate to that as well, because as you
Mm,
said, the academic structure, you go to school, you do your exams, you go to university, and you're making quite big decisions early on around what you want to study and what direction that will take you. And probably a lot of people, given the fees that they pay, I don't know if you'd have paid university fees
no,
in
I
Scotland.
didn't.
Well, but for a lot of people, on top of then looking for that next job, they think about the debt and paying it off, making sure it was all worth it. Maybe you just assume to step into a job. So I'm guessing that uncertainty is something that a lot of people feel at that time. But what other emotions did you face during that unemployment? Was it like self-doubt?
Mhm.
Just what else?
It was a lot of self-doubt, and it was challenging my inner self to say, have I made the right decisions? I've just spent 6 years of my life going to university, learning all these wonderful things, and then to come out to say, well, it's absolutely come to nothing.
Hmm.
That's hard. Mentally, it plays on your brain so much. And I was in a point there just after, 2 or 3 months after graduating, where I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm in a difficult place here. And to be able to recognize that, there was this early onset of depression there. I got depressed. I wasn't going out. I wasn't doing the fun things I was doing at university. I was sitting in my bedroom in my mom's home and literally looking at a TV screen that was not even turned on. And in those days, we didn't have the fancy flat screens that we have today. Those are the big, cathode ray tubes that we had, the big tubes of television that you had the remote, but the remote was like you pressed a button that was physically a button.
Yeah.
And I was literally just flicking a button, but the TV wasn't even on. That's how difficult it became for me, and that was a turning point for me mentally because I knew that I had to do something different. And I spent a good few months wallowing in my mum's bedroom, in my bedroom, looking at a blank TV screen that wasn't even on, flicking a remote control.
And just
Uh,
before we talk about what you did do differently, just for context, what was the job market and economy generally like at that time? And also, were your classmates experiencing the same thing?
we all were. We
Yeah.
all were. There was a huge economic downturn in the 90s there, and the early 90s, and it was so hard to get a job. There was an economic downturn, and I can't even remember what the cause was of that downturn, but it was hard. I was finding it hard to get a job. I was applying like crazy before my university course ended, and so was my peers, my friends. I still remember, and we still had to literally phone each other on the telephone, the old style telephones that you had in the house. We still
The
had the
red cord.
rotary dial,
Yeah.
and we'd phone each other and like, "Have you got anything yet?" And people would say, "No, I haven't. How many jobs have you applied for?" "Oh, about 60." And this is really hard. And so I was part of that generation that was just forgotten about once you came out of university, and it wasn't a great place to be in. And I hope we never ever go back to that place in our society moving forward in our future because it was hard.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
on that point, I wouldn't say the market is like that currently, but I think there are a lot of people that are looking for roles, and perhaps it's taken a longer than normal. We're having bigger gaps between contract roles. So based on your situation, perhaps your friend's situation, like what support network did you have? What did you do? How did you help yourself?
I didn't really have a support network. It wasn't even something we talked about, Nathan and Duncan. It was something that you just had to persist and go through. Obviously, I talked to mom and dad and all the wonderful things and all the people around me. And it goes back to that, the family aspect of it. I did talk to family, but again, they weren't able to support me. They didn't really understand why I did a maths degree. Neither do I, but now I do. But that support network just didn't exist for me. So one of the things I got very clear about for my early in career was I just had to be really determined, really stoic about everything I did. And for that, I became really independent. So one of the good things that came out of that period was my sense of independence and being able to do what I really want to do and to stop planning things. And I think that's where I got first sense of planning. I never planned anything in my life before that time. Who plans in their teen years? No one, right? No one plans what they're going to do for the rest of their life. It's rare that people do. I didn't. I didn't even know what I was going to do the next year. So in that period where I didn't have a job, I really just planned, and I got to learn how to do planning early on in my life, and that's kind of a hallmark of me. I like to plan things. I want to plan and be having that certain. I guess it goes to that point of I want certainty. I hate surprises. Oh my goodness! Don't ever surprise me because I hate it. Other half wanted to take me to Switzerland to go skiing in Davos, and I said, "No, we need to cancel that holiday." I was like, "I don't like that whole. I hate surprises, so I like to plan and be upfront with things." Yeah.
So you said you kind of became persistent, double down. Like in practical terms, what is that? So someone sat at home right now thinking, I've applied for 70 jobs this week. I've not heard anything. What would you say?
I would say continue to persist, but plan where you want to go, and be strategic about your planning. Don't do planning by sporadic applications. Like there's so many jobs that you can apply to, and that's one thing that you can do. But you also got to plan where you want to take your interest and your passion. For me, my interest and passion are in science and engineering and being practical and maths. So I planned that direction. I wanted to go into something scientific. I could never go and become a journalist. No offense to journalists. I love them. We all love journalists. But I just couldn't do journalism. I'm not very good with English literature or writing long text. That's me. I love writing hieroglyphs and mathematical equations. And I know that sounds weird, right? So it's about planning where you really want to go to, thinking about all your strengths and your passions, and that passion will come through in your interview. And I love when people interview with me and they say, I'm passionate about whatever the topic, and you know that they're passionate about it. So when you're planning or interviewing or applying for jobs, come out with that passion, come out with what you're good at, because that's what's going to shine through to others.
I think we see that quite a lot, probably more so when we're speaking to permanent candidates, because contractors are generally at the more experienced end of
Mm-hmm.
their career. They're providing a very niche set of services, and it's just the case of getting the next project. They will always find those contract roles that gives them a bit of exposure and they do learn something new. But
Mm-hmm.
it's more the conversations that we have with permanent candidates where you can tell if they're applying for jobs with intention versus I just need a job.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, for everyone's personal situation is different, right? So there's an element of panic to some people's job searches at the moment, but you have to just remind them, you need to get this job, but you need to be happy in this job and want to stay for however long, and that it's going to add value to your career. So I think just generally one of the lessons I'm picking up from you is you've lived your life with intention, and you're always thinking a step ahead of what does this lead to for me? What options have I got? What one do I want to take? It's all very like intentional, I would say.
It is, and planned, Duncan. Planning for me is really important. So I I knew kind of the steps I wanted to get to in my career. Certainly in that early stage of me applying for jobs, I said I wanted to go and travel the world. So I applied for a consultancy job. I knew that I was going to travel the world.
Mm,
I applied for jobs in regulatory affairs, and I did. I got a job in regulatory affairs. You need to somehow think about what the steps are to get to where you need to. And for me, I know where I want to go next with my next stage of my career. Having this amazing opportunity at MHRA it's a natural stepping stone to helping implement what I've actually just defined in regulation. And that for me is a natural stepping stone, and looking for opportunities around that is just going to be an incredible privilege to be able to do. But I plan that ahead. I know I'm going to do that next. I'm going to create the circumstances where I can do that. There's training that you can do, there's people you can meet, there are recruiters that you can contact, like Duncan and Nathan, who are expert in the areas that you want to go into. So that for me, I think creating a set of circumstances is about planning ahead for what you want to go to. And that's a great thing to always have. Not everything you can plan, and I recognize that, but you plan in a broader strategic sense so you know where you can get to, what your passions are, what your strengths are, where you're going to get to, so that you can get to what you want to achieve. Because when you get there, it's actually going to be really fun to do. And I've seen that in my career. Having landed certain roles is just fantastic. This is one of those fantastic times in my life, and it's such an honor to be doing it. But others who are still looking, think about where you want to plan to create those circumstances to allow you to get there.
And just on that, the point around the circumstances and planning for it, like Duncan and I talk about it every single day, that opportunities are connected to people. And can you think of one opportunity that exists without a person? Probably not. Therefore, speak to people.
Yeah.
Speak to people that do, even broadly do what you think you want to do, because a piece of information could literally change the way in which you approach a subject. And I'm sure you've had those conversations that have opened it up for you.
Nathan, you're spot on. It's that we forget that roles these days are not robots. We are not robots. We're humans. Although artificial intelligence might think differently, but we're humans. We have human intelligence, as I like to call it, or emotional intelligence, as many psychologists put it in literature. And as humans, we need to interact with other humans. And you need to find the right humans to interact with, all different skill sets and backgrounds. But you're spot on, Nathan. It's about making sure you have those interactions like yourselves, like others, like events, that you can go and actually talk to other people and learn and interact and be human about it. Because humanity is not about standing behind a keyboard and talking about something with a piece of paper on a screen. It's about you conveying a idea, a message, a narrative. Can I just share one thing that Laura shared with me? And she's excellent at this. She said, when you create something, tell a story. And a story is what humans relate to. Because what's one thing we do with our children? Nathan, I know you got children. What's one thing that you always do with your children? You tell them a story.
Constantly tell stories, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So sharing a story, a narrative, is a human way of describing an idea, a concept. And once people relate to you, you start to have that connection. And connection for me is really important. And that's one thing I've learned more recently is sharing connections and connecting other people are really important. And that's very important through recruitment, through medical devices regulations and IVD regulations, but also talking to the greater public.
So in this current role, it is the most public facing role you've been in. And to get policies through some of the regulations that you're working on, people will have opinions on that, and not everyone will agree with decisions, directions. So how have you handled that personally? Because as I said, you are in a very public facing role, and are probably getting elements of criticism where you maybe wouldn't have had that in previous times in your career. So just from managing your mental health and resilience, what have you learned in the past couple of years in dealing with that?
Great question, Duncan. Someone's asked me that before, and it's great to be able to speak about it. So I get a lot of criticism in this role. It's a public role. It's a public-facing role in a senior civil servant level position. I see lots of criticism, be it online, be it through social media channels, LinkedIn, but those are very far and few. But when they do get mentioned, especially in newspaper articles or publications online that are very broad-reaching in the mass media, it hurts. No, I feel it. I'm still human. I'm still a person. I'm still Joseph. And I feel it. And I feel it. So mentally, I get it. Everyone has the right to say what they want to say, but they have to say it with care sometimes, and because it does hurt. I take feedback and criticism personally. I always have. And can I share why? I take feedback and criticism personally because I invest all of me in what I do. I invest 100% of what I do in my job because I feel passionate about it. And when I get feedback or criticism, especially in the mass media, it can be quite personal, and I take it personally. So what do? It's a good question. I will make sure I put a circle around that feedback or criticism. And what I mean by that is I compartmentalize it. And it goes back to me in my younger years, I like to categorize things. That's what science is. You're categorizing things and you're compartmentalizing things. So I put a circle around that sort of criticism and put context to what they're trying to say. And instead of taking it personally, which I do like in the first day or 2 days, I'll come back to it later on in the week. And then I'll digest it in a way that says what's their point that they're trying to make, or where do they come from with their perspective. And then I'll look at it more objectively. And when I do that, I actually will understand a bit more of the greater feedback. So mentally, it gets very challenging to do that because it does invest a lot of your brain power. Absolutely a huge amount. Because I'm not sure about you, Duncan or Nathan, but for me, it resonates in my brain. It just percolates there for hours and hours on end. And the noise gets very noisy, and I start to think about it more and more and more. Over the years, I've come to learn that, I can suppress some of that by doing other things. And what's the other thing I love doing? DIY. So when I'm doing DIY, I let it percolate in my head, and whilst I'm doing whatever, probably not something dangerous like electrical related item, but something mundane, right? Like painting.
If you're
Painting
doing corking, you've had a tough week.
Yes. When I do stuff like that, it percolates in my head, and what happens is it allows me to really digest that criticism or feedback, and then I think about it. I let it think, and then I'll do something about it. And that's it. For me, it's as simple as that. Letting it just simmer, compartmentalize, come back to it, think about it a bit more, and then let put some context around to what someone said. It happens very, very rarely that I will act aggressively about, or impulsively about a feedback point. I won't be that keyboard warrior. It's like, I hate you. I will never speak to you again. No, I'm not that type of guy. I'm very much more reserved, and I will think about what someone says to me. But I do take it personally. I'm just human. Mm. How about yourselves? How do you take it? How do you take feedback?
I'd like to say I take it really well, but I probably don't.
Do you know what? It depends on who it comes from.
Yeah.
Like, if it's... It depends. Like, if it's someone that's generally measured and they give you feedback, it's like, okay, maybe there's a point in there. If someone's always giving you feedback, it becomes noise and maybe you don't take it seriously. I think the person, how it's delivered is key, isn't it? But I suppose if you're getting it via newspapers or social media, then I imagine it's not going to be delivered in the best possible way. So
no, it's rare. And you don't actually even know who the other person is on the other side.
Yeah, it's masked feedback or masked criticism is so easy to give nowadays. And you think anyone in a public-facing role or celebrities, they're almost expected to have an opinion on everything, and not everyone is going to agree with that. You're kind of pushed for it. Whereas within your inner circle, we talk about it on the podcast about having your personal board of directors, the people that you lean on, that you trust, and you value their opinions, you value their feedback, and it's constructive feedback at that point. Maybe you're seeking it out. So yeah, who it is, how it's delivered. You don't always have to listen to it, but knowing who you go to for your feedback is really important.
And can I just say one other thing that's important about feedback is you've got to be able to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt sometimes, but with the humility that comes with that feedback, and just taking it into context. For me, that feedback is sometimes very personal online or on newspaper articles, because I do feel it being personal. But at the same time, I will learn from that feedback or that criticism. I am not 100% perfect. I wish I was. That would make me a robot, right? But
yeah, you'd be very boring.
It'd be very boring. I'd be doing an automatic process, A, then B, then C, then D. But that's not me. I'm still like to think, and I like thinking, and I really enjoy being able to learn from that experience. To self education for me is really important. I'm a resilient and love being a resilient person, but I've got to also be able to learn from experiences, and life is a learning experience. And it goes back to regulatory affairs. Regulatory affairs is not a static thing. Regulations change. I'm changing them. Sorry, I have to say that up front. But as part of change, you need to be able to learn how to adapt. And learning is a continual process. For me, learning is a fun thing to do. I love learning. And that's what I learned back at university years. And I think that's what caused my challenges after university is I stopped learning. So for me, learning is really important. Learning's fun. There's one person I still remember early in my career that said, don't stop learning. Do continual educational learning, because it's going to be something that will broaden your soul, broaden your mind, but broaden your experiences.
Yeah, good advice. Good advice.
And I've picked up several lessons throughout this conversation, but if you had to leave our listeners with just one key lesson of your life, could you pick one?
Yes. Great question again. Oh my goodness. You guys are on fire with your questions, but thank you for asking. The one thing I would leave is plan ahead. Make sure that you understand where you want to head to. So set that vision, that where you want to get to, and create the conditions to allow you to get there. Be it in your personal life, be it in your career, be it in your new opportunities that you want to go into. So it could be outside of regulatory affairs. It could be in another area of medical devices, for example, in R&D, or potentially in product sales and other parts of our industry. But I would say make sure you understand where that vision is and know all the bits in between to get there. So it's almost like setting that vision and the mission, but knowing beyond that mission all the conditions for you to get to that vision and mission. That's the big learning from my life, and I would absolutely make sure I could share that with others, and the people that I work with today and in the future will be able to hopefully take advantage of that advice as well.
Yeah, and it's quite clear you're enjoying what you're doing at the moment, and very grateful for what you do. And I think you've lived your life lesson through, and you're seeing the fruits of your labor now. And
yeah, very much, Nathan. And it's such an honor, as I said before, to do this role, to interact with the people I've never would have interacted with, foreseen in the early stages of my career, and the people like yourselves, like Nathan and Duncan, and of course others in the regulatory world, other guests that have been on Beyond the Device podcast, are all amazing people, absolutely amazing. But I would never have had the opportunity to do this and broaden that experience in this role that I've got today. And I hope it makes an impact, because I want to leave a legacy, and I really want to just talk about that for a second. So legacy for me is an important thing. Simon left a legacy with me, with the opportunities I've had to take until now. But with the next 30 years, I'd like to leave a legacy too. And that legacy is something called the UK medical device regulations. We have not made updates to our regulations since 2002. My goodness. But I'm doing that now, and hope that with that legacy, I bring in some new things that we can change in our country. New technologies that we've not seen here before. Technologies are still being developed in research and development that I probably won't experience in my lifetime, but hopefully the next generation will. So all these wonderful things that I'm able to do now is a legacy I'd like to leave when I retire, and that's not for a while yet. No, it's not for a while yet. I'd like to leave a legacy to make sure that I have a framework, a regulatory framework that encourages and enables that. And, to have the right choices for people around self-tests, or providing the latest and greatest medical technologies that aren't accessible to us in Britain. I'm doing this through the different reforms we're doing for medical devices and legislation here in the UK. But I hope that leaves that lasting legacy for the next 30 years at least, or even beyond. So that's what I'd like to leave as my legacy to the regulatory affairs world.
And we will be forever grateful if the regulation changes leads to a massive influx of hiring across the UK for medical device and diagnostic companies. So thank you, Joseph, if that's the case.
No, hopefully we'll inspire new people to come into our industry as well. That would be really great.
Anything else to add, Dunks?
It's like a world exclusive that Joseph Burt has ambitions to be our next Prime Minister. That would be nice.
I would love to, but immediate term. I don't have the gravitas that a current Prime Minister or past Prime Ministers have had. But hopefully, you never know.
Ambition. No, it's been a brilliant conversation, as we knew it would be. And just forever grateful for your continued support for CAPU and our community.
Absolute honor to be able to do this with you, Duncan and Nathan. Great friends, great colleagues, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. And for anyone that's been listening, and if you've made you reflect on your own turning point and would like to come on and share your story, we'd love to have you. Please like and share, subscribe, do all the usual things, and we look forward to our next episode of Beyond the Device podcast. Thanks, Joseph.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.